Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Jason McDonald. He is from the city of Royalton, PD in Minnesota, and he has 30 years experience in public safety, over 20 years experience in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief McDonald. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. You shared with me some really powerful things, and I'm really hoping that we can dive into those. But I know you started your career 30 years ago, and I was hoping you could give us a little bit of background into what that looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you said, about 30 years now of public safety experience. I started my career back in the mid 90s, originally on an ambulance service, small volunteer service in southeast Minnesota, and then became a paramedic and worked as a paramedic for several years before deciding that I was going to go and join law enforcement. Um, I have always had kind of the um, desire to be in public safety. Um, as a kid, you always want to be a cop, you want to be the firefighter or whatever. And I had the opportunity in high school to join a EMS or ambulance explorer post that's sponsored through the Boy Scouts at that time, and really loved emergency medicine and helping people and everything. So I decided to go that route when I got out of high school, um, but still had the desire to be in law enforcement. I come from a family that is very involved in public service. My grandfather on my mom's side was uh, involved in law enforcement. My grandfather on my dad's side was involved in city government and was a mayor for years. So just kind of that background. I had an uncle that was in the military and became a paramedic. So I'd been exposed to all these different facets of public safety and enjoyed the paramedic job. I still have my paramedic certification. I keep that up just because I never want to take that test again. So if I decide to use it, I want to make sure I still have my certification. But yeah, about 2001, 2002, decided I was going to go back to school for law enforcement and enjoyed it. I've been worked in several facets of law enforcement now up for the last 21 plus years here now, and now serving as chief for a small rural area in Minnesota.
Thank you. When we talked offline, you said this to me, and I'm going to quote you because I thought that this was really powerful, and I was hoping that you could explain what you meant by this. But you said, the job changes you. You start by wanting to change the world, but the world changes you. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. And I've seen this not only in myself, but I've seen it in um, other individuals I've worked with and stuff over the years. And um, we go into this profession with just this gung-ho, excited, I'm ready to go out there. And I can remember as, a young paramedic just waiting for calls and, um, you know, seeing just some, I wanted to practice medicine, right? I wanted to be able to start IVs, give medicine, save lives. And as I got into law enforcement, it was you get in that patrol car and you just want to drive around and run traffic and go to calls, arrest the bad guy and everything. And I think, um, and part of the way it changes you, I think, too, is if you go back 30 years ago, we weren't really preparing officers for the mental stress and medics as well for the mental stress that you're going to have from this. Um, our mental health advice was you're going to see some bad stuff. Don't take it home with you. That was what we got. And the problem with that is we see bad stuff. You are constantly going, to calls where you're either dealing with on the law enforcement side, people will call you and you get there and then they're mad you're there. Um, you go to a medical call and you get there and you can't save that life, that person dies or whatever. Or you're working a death investigation, you're telling family members, hey, your family member's dead. How do you explain that to someone? And as the career goes on, I think you kind of get, especially in law enforcement, you kind of get cynical because of all the stuff you see in, day out. And I see that change. I saw it myself, and I see it in other officers too, that I can remember training, younger medics, younger officers, and then you see them a few years down the road, and they're not that same jovial person that's excited to go take calls. It's like,
Yeah.
enough for service. And I think it wears you out both mentally and physically. And I think we need to do a better job. And there's a lot of admin out there that have recognized this and are doing a good job. And you have a lot of them on your podcast, and but I think we just need to prepare our guys and gals a little bit better. And we're getting better at it. But, looking back at my generation to today's generation, there's just definitely a lack of properly preparing guys and supporting our guys and gals in uniform for this job.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And I agree with you. I do think that there are so many people out there that care and that want to make a positive change and they want to support their people. And I think it's because you have all had those experiences yourself where you didn't have that. I think that unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through the hard stuff to be able to make a change and to be able to support people so that they have better resources and better chances than you did. And that is something that I've heard across the board is, kind of these um, almost like cautionary tales or these really challenging things that have happened to you guys so that you can then be better leaders for the future generation. Can you maybe give a little bit of insight into your personal experiences with mental wellness and the toll that this career can take on your mental health?
Sure. And we've talked offline a little bit about kind of my story. Um, and I share it a lot more often now than I did even when I initially was going through my struggles. And I think it's important to share our personal experiences because if we can inspire one person to go get help or accept the fact that they might need help, it's a huge benefit. So yeah, like I said, I did this job for years, and I will tell you that I did not have the training to recognize, some of the symptoms and stuff, and I buried a lot of stuff. Um, I didn't take things home with me, but yet I did. They were in my head, but I didn't talk about it. I didn't let my feelings out. I didn't. Um, and so eventually, I got assigned to a violent crime offender task force, undercover narcotics unit. Spent several years doing that, and I really just buried myself in the job. And I didn't, I worked as many hours as I could because it avoided um, going home and dealing with, the issues I had or whatever, because I could focus at work. I could just bury myself and lose myself in the work. I was making myself worse
Yeah.
because I wasn't dealing with it. And I started to suffer from depression because of it. And I've got a little bit of ADHD I never outgrew, I think. And when you start um, getting into that kind of depressive state, lack of sleep and everything like that, though it got to the point where I couldn't concentrate at work anymore. Um, I I couldn't complete tasks. I'd write my tasks down, but I couldn't focus on them. Um, my family life was to the point where it was not pleasant. And I did it to myself because I didn't recognize those signs early enough. I had several over the course of doing this career, law enforcement, EMS, we experience way more critical incidents in our life than any average human being will. I think the statistics are what, like normal person, 3 or 5 critical incidents in their life, where we're dealing with them every day.
Yeah.
Um, and it got to the point where finally I recognized that I need to get help. Um, the night terrors, it's a real thing. I know I've heard people joke about it. I'm like, no, I mean, you wake up sweating, can't breathe, not sleeping at night, um, lack of concentration, just inability to really thrive in life. And so it was about 2019, end of 2019, where I finally made the decision that I need to go and get help. And that took about 3 months of therapy and treatment to get myself um, back on track and really um, push the stuff I'd seen and dealt with out of my head and replace those with good thoughts and stuff. So that it took, like I said, and it's not something that just went away. And for people that think I can just go to treatment for, a week or two and I'm going to be better, it's a constant life struggle. And we need to be aware of, it gave me some tools to work with. And I can tell when I'm having, if I'm starting to have an issue, I know what to do now and where to go and, um, deal with those things so I don't get back to the point that I was at before.
Yeah. And, I can completely relate to you with shoving things down and not dealing with them and what that does to your entire life, and I think that it's such a protection mechanism, right? It's like we don't want to feel those things or revisit those things, and we don't want to be perceived as weak. And so what we do is we sacrifice ourselves and our wellness for that. And I definitely had those moments in my life, through my own personal traumas and things that I went through when I was younger of just shove it down, posture up, and keep going. And I started doing similar things, not the same, but similar in the sense of wanting to avoid and escape and numb and not want to deal with any of it. And then eventually it all bubbles to the surface and you're put in a position where you have to, and those moments that you shared where things were coming up and you're waking up with night terrors and, it's impacting your home wellness and all these things. It's like it manifests itself. And eventually there comes a point where you don't really have a choice. You have to
Yeah.
deal with these things. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I completely agree with you that sharing our stories it's so powerful and it can inspire other people. And make it so that other people know that they're not alone because I think that we do that to ourselves. We think that we are the only people who are dealing with it. And I think it's in large part because we all try to hide it.
Yeah.
So if everyone around you is doing a really good job of shoving things down and posturing up and hiding it, then we're all looking at each other and being like, oh, there's something wrong with me because everyone else around me seems like they're doing okay. But everyone else is also suffering in silence and not okay, but maybe too afraid to show it or to talk about it. And so I think that conversations are so powerful, they can save lives. And it was not comfortable for me either. I probably didn't start sharing my story and the things that I had been through until maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And now I think that it's something that it's almost like our duty, to be able to share those things so that people can learn and find some sort of commonality between all of us. So I wanted to ask you, did you feel like there was support around you to be able to ask for help? Like, do you feel like you had a safe space to do that? I know that you came from a generation that maybe was like rub dirt on it, don't talk about it. Was there fear in asking for help, or do you feel like you had that space to do so?
There was a fear. Um, we're the big tough guys, right? I was, you know, worked my way up in seniority. I was, on our SWAT team. I was,
Yeah.
uh, you know, out there, doing what I wanted to do in law enforcement. But I was deathly afraid to say anything because I felt it was a sign of weakness. One, just based on how I grew up in this job, you didn't talk about things, right? I think we use humor a lot in law enforcement, dark humor we joke about some of the stuff we've seen. I think it's a good release if you're in the right crowd. Obviously, you don't want to go out with your family and friends and kind of talk about things because they'll look at you like, what's wrong with you?
Sure.
Um, but, you know, but we didn't have any healthy way to release that thing. You look at law enforcement, you know, look at like military and stuff too. What do we do when we're off and we get together? We sit and we drink, and BS about stuff, but we really don't get serious about the conversation. We basically numb our pain by sitting around drinking and, joking about it. But we didn't have a peer support system in place. We didn't have, um, we had EAP, go use EAP or go talk with the chaplain. Those were our two options. Well, you know what? The chaplain's in the office every day. Um, I really enjoy the chaplain, and he provides a fantastic service for us. But it just wasn't the person I wanted to go and tell my life story to because I see this guy every day, right? EAP, they give you three sessions and then you're on your own. But we're not going to set you up necessarily with the best person. We're going to set you up with the first available person we can find. Um, so I didn't really know where to turn. I finally used EAP and then used it to, I actually found someone that had an understanding of kind of law enforcement, military environments, and it worked out fine. But yeah, I didn't feel that I could, you know, really say anything. And then when I did say something, uh, suddenly all the opportunities I had worked my way up to weren't there anymore. So, so yeah, there was I felt a lack of support. Um, I was off for 3 months. First couple of weeks, got a phone call. Hey, how's things going? What's going on? We getting better? Yep, we're working on it, blah, blah, blah. Well, as a couple of months more went by, those phone calls didn't come anymore. And um, yeah, I think the hardest part for me was, I got pulled off of one of my assignments right away. And we're doing a better job of educating leadership now, telling them, when they come ask for help, you know, yes, maybe they're not fit for that assignment, but maybe don't pull it from them right away. When it was pulled from me, I was in a dark place already. I was struggling with things and I lost my assignment and I I was done. I hit my breaking point and luckily, the gun I went for, I had locked up. But I had hit that point where I'm done and I didn't feel supported. I felt like I was out on an island and, luckily, knowing what I know about, uh, issues of PTS and depression and everything, I had made sure I didn't have access to, um, a weapon that I could easily get to. I kept things locked up. So, um, yeah, the one I had out in my truck that I normally carried with me, um, wasn't there that night, and that's why I'm still here. And I tell that story, not to put, I don't want it to seem like I'm degrading the institution I worked for. But I think there's just a lack of understanding. But I want guys to know that it does happen. You may hit that point, but there is opportunity and life on the other side. Just ask for help before you get to the point I did.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that to your point, that's the fear and the stigma that holds people back from seeking resources, and when you have leadership who proves that point of, taking away an assignment or not being supportive, then everyone else sees that and then they're afraid to reach out to. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious to know, where did that strength and resilience to come back and to keep going come from? And how did that experience that you had influence the way that you lead and support your team today?
Well, I'm a stubborn Norwegian Irishman, so we don't give up easy, I guess. No, um, this was my life, and it was what I felt I was here to do. Um, and I did step away. I got out of the profession for a while, and I went and worked in the private sector. And my God, was that boring, initially. Of course, it was during COVID, so you had to work from home and whatnot. Um, it was a really good job. It's just at that time you couldn't do anything, and I got bored and um, eventually came back because I had the desire to come back. And I think a lot of guys, and I can tell you that I met with an attorney when was initially separating, going through treatment and stuff to look at, what are my benefits? Can I, is this am I going to be able to do this job anymore or whatnot? And the attorney's office was real great at convincing me I needed to leave the profession,
Mm,
you know, and, meet with our psychologist and he'll sign you off and everything. So I meet with a guy for a matter of 10 minutes, and get this 50 some page report from a guy that met with me for just a few minutes. And, it was, they're helping you get out because they're getting money
yeah.
out of it, right? They're not helping you to return to service. So what helped me is, uh, one, going and getting that treatment and getting it. I waited too long, but it was still early enough that I was able to um, prevent future trauma. I think had I waited, another year, things would have compounded worse, and I don't know if I would have been able to come back to this profession. Uh, the other thing that helps is I'm not going to sit here and preach, but I think you do have to have some religion in your life, whatever that looks like, some belief system. I'm a Christian myself, um, but uh, uh, I went and my grandfather had died several years ago, and I got his Bible had been given to me. And I went and picked that up finally one day, and I hadn't touched it. It was covered in dust. I hadn't touched it since I got it. And he had bookmarks in there he was very religious and went to Bible studies and stuff all the time. Something that I had not been that involved since I was a kid. And I'm like, I'll read through this. And I picked it up and hit those bookmarks. And those bookmarks were actually in places that had chapters and verses dealing with some of the stuff I was dealing with. And if God isn't slapping you right across the face
Mhm.
with that, and, hey, it's been sitting here on your shelf this whole time, just pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
So that helped. Family support. I know the day I hit my breaking point, my mom happened to be up visiting, and I woke up the next morning to my dad sitting in the house. My mom and dad are separated and have been since I was very, very young. Um, but he lived 2 hours away and drove during the night to make sure he was there the next morning. So having that family support helped. Um, I've got some very close friends that were very supportive and checked in. And well, we didn't really deal with things probably the way we should have, at least having the friendship there and someone to reach out to. Um, so that's what helped, and it got me back on track. And it was the desire to come back too was there, but I knew I had to do something in order to come back. I couldn't just come back to the job. And I will tell you that I took those few months off, came back. It was probably a little too early. I don't think I was quite back to where I needed to be, but after separation and really taking some time off from the profession, it allowed me to reset and get in a better mindset. Um, and then coming back to here, now taking this job a few years ago, um, my goal has been to really make sure that my guys feel supported, not just my guys. We're a small department, but I work with a lot of neighboring agencies and stuff where I have very good friends that work for those agencies. So going and meeting with those guys and telling them, my story and hey, I'm here to support you. We've worked to get a peer support program going. As one of the things I did was go through peer support training, several hours of that really opened my eyes to, wow, this is really important stuff and we should have this.
Yeah.
I have a neighboring agency that's very supportive of it, and we've been working together to kind of do a cooperative peer support program. I know our local county agency right now is getting working on trying to get grant money and stuff, start a peer support program. So it's growing in the region. Um, but I taught at Skills Academy for several years, and the last couple of years I was there was after I'd gone through my kind of thing, and I even would tell the skills students, at the end of the day, hey, this is kind of some of the things you can expect in this job, and here's some steps to take as you continue on in your career. Because I think we hit about that 5 year mark, and if we aren't set up for success with peer support, with physical well-being, mental well-being, after that, about that 5 year mark, we can see guys either start to slide or just not be prosper as well in the career as we want them to. And I think that's where we get some of those guys that hit that 5, 10 year mark and they hop out of the career because we aren't doing a good enough job to keep them prepared for what they're going to deal with.
I think my question, I think this is the burning question. How do you get people who are younger, who maybe have that like type A personality, who maybe see wellness as weakness? What is the message that you send to them, or how do you get them to prioritize the resources? Because, one of the things that I hear a lot is there's been a lot of great strides, which there have been, and there's a lot of support, but it's still really hard to get people to take advantage of the support and the resources that are being provided. So, is there a strategy that you use to get more of that buy-in and that participation from people?
It's hard. This profession, we're all, for the most part, type A personalities, right? We're big, strong men and women, nothing bothers us. Um, I think one of the advantages I've had is I've been in this career a long time. I've met a lot of people in this career. I've had the opportunity to train a lot of people in this career. And I think once you get up to that point, if you're leading by example, and I'm going out there telling no one wants to talk about their, a lot of people want to talk about themselves, but no one wants to talk about the bad stuff, right? We always want to talk about the good stuff. I did this, I did that. Well, I think if we go out and we tell that story of, hey, I've been there. I've been depressed. I've been, you know, I wanted to end it all. I've suffered through this. And they see that, hey, someone in a leadership role or someone who's been doing this long can say that. That's that's a initial step. And I
Mm,
think we have to get it out there and be more proactive about advertising it too. Hey, here's our peer support program. Here's what we offer. And and to get that buy-in, and I've talked with as I've gone through the training, as I've met with other chiefs and everything, some of these peer support programs, you get the counselor that just comes in and rides with the guys,
mm,
right? For a shift or two. No one wants to talk to that counselor, right?
mm,
They don't want to tell them their life story, but guess what? Him or her is gonna ride with you for, a half hour tonight. The majority of people get out of there and go, I didn't want this person in my car. By the time I left, I told them my life story and
mm.
I feel better now. So it's little things like that, adding incentives for, you know, just have those neck up checkups offered. Hey, you have to go to it. Um, you can or can't, but if you go to it, we'll give you some extra hours of vacation. You don't have to talk. All you got to do is show up. 99% of the people are going to end up talking.
Yeah.
and they're going to get some extra vacation. So what are the incentives? I think it's easier with the younger generation right now. I think they're more receptive to it because we're educating people more. The stigma for the younger generation isn't there as much as it is for mine.
Yeah.
I think with the older generation, with like my guys that have grown up in law enforcement with me, I think it's us taking the steps to tell our stories and let them know that it's okay to ask for help. It's, being the big tough guy isn't the okay thing anymore. And look at everything you've achieved over your career. Do you want to keep going in this career? Do you want to live past your first paycheck when you retire? What are we doing to help ourselves achieve those goals? So I think those are some of the steps, just getting the story out there, being supportive, constantly throwing it out there that, hey, this program exists or this program exists, and I went to it, you should go to it. And then eventually it takes just that, and it's peer support, right? So it takes that one peer, it takes that one person that someone looks up to say it's okay to do this, for that person to be more willing to follow.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that the more the culture supports wellness and to your point has the message of it's okay to ask for help or to ask for resources, but there's also no question as to what resources are available.
Right.
The
Yes.
more visibility of those resources, then no one is put in a position like you were, where you said, I didn't know where to go. Like, I didn't know what to do. And so I did this, but a lot of people aren't going to do that. Not everyone is going to do what you did and go and use EAP or go see a therapist. But I think that, like you said, the more visibility, the more conversations, the more culture of wellness you can put into an organization, then when someone does need help, they feel safe. And then there's no question as to where they can go.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. And then having the right resources too. Your peer support program, we've been working with a company that they specialize in first responders. The counselors are first responders, so they have an understanding of the culture, and just having those resources out there in front of them all the time and then um, the leaders need to look at it too as not to question that employee when they ask for help, and have that reassurance to employees. If you go and ask for help, there's no questions asked. Like, that's the nice thing about the peer support program is if it's run properly, they're not going to know who's using it. They're just going to get statistics on how many people have used it. And
Yeah.
as a leader, I want my guys and gals to be in the best mental health they can as well, because we're going out and serving the public. Do you want the old disgruntled
Yeah.
cop showing up that's, hates life? And what's his attitude going to be towards the public versus the person that's healthy, happy, still enjoys their life, has a good life outside of law enforcement, everything like that? The customer service is going to be that much better as well.
Yeah. I agree that it impacts performance. And um, there's two things I wanted to touch on. One, I heard, and I don't know how you feel about this, and I understand that you're never ever going to get everybody. There's always going to be people who still maybe don't
Mhm.
trust, or there's going to be people who don't want to utilize resources. I think to think that you're going to get 100% of people using or on board with one
Oh,
singular thing is um, maybe not super realistic. But there was one chief I talked to that said that he will scan the EAP bill or the therapy bill. It wasn't EAP, it was the therapy bill, I think. And he will email that to everyone. So it shows like we don't know who, like this is confidential. Like we do not know
yeah,
who is using this program. We just see that it's being utilized. I get a bill and then I pay for it. And so I think there are little opportunities to build trust. And I think people are looking for those little things like is leadership doing what they say? Is, if someone within the organization asks for help, how are they treated? Are they ripped away from an assignment right away, or what is happening? And so I think there's little opportunities to build that trust, and we all know this that trust is earned,
yeah,
and you could be building trust for so long, and then one thing just takes you back to square one. And so I think that as many, opportunities to build that trust and to show that it is actually something that they can utilize. And I think that that actionary, like showing them is so much better than saying. And I think that that's not just, within the organization. I think that's in life. We have to show people that we mean what we say. Um, One of the things that you said that I think is so true is that we have to be able to share. We have to be able to be vulnerable. And I heard this statement the other day, and I thought it was so powerful. They said vulnerability is the opposite of fear. So the
Mm.
opposition of fear is vulnerability. And it's actually like backed up by science and research to show that like they are the opposite of each other. And so I think if we can start to recognize that the more vulnerable you are, the more strength you have, and the more impact you can have on people because you are stepping out of fear and into this position of strength. So I thought that popped up in my head as you were saying that you have to be able to share your story with people to inspire.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear of talking about stuff because of perception, and I'm I think we're swinging the other way now, where it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and share those stories and take that, as you said, take that fear away from people about asking for help or reaching out.
Yeah. What words of advice? I know that you're a smaller organization, and you are, trying to create more regional resources. What advice would you have for other leaders to support wellness, maybe even in the context of working within a small organization, because we know that it's challenging to have the resources. And it's not just financial resources, which I know that's always a thing with every organization, but I also think, to your point of peer support and, talking to people, sometimes it's a little bit harder when you guys are all so close knit. So what words of advice would you give to other leaders who are maybe trying to start more of a culture or a program that includes wellness?
Um, well, I think it's important for leadership to go through peer support training themselves. Obviously, I don't want the chief going in and doing the after action, debrief before sending people home for the day after a critical incident. No one wants to tell the chief about the stuff,
Right.
but having an understanding of how the program works, what exactly peer support is, what is mental wellness, what is officer wellness, just having that understanding. And I know Minnesota's doing a pretty good job here of having training now specifically for law enforcement leadership in peer support so that they understand what is peer support. Because I think you have to have an understanding. If you don't know anything about it and you're going to try to implement the program, you're not going to get it. It's not going to run right.
Mhm.
So having an understanding of what is peer support, and that's why I went through the training myself. And there's a lot I didn't know about peer support that I know now just because I went through that training. I think the other thing is to lead by example.
Mhm.
Be that voice out there that says, because if you've been a cop for 20 plus years, even 10 years, even 5 years, you've had experiences that have somehow affected you some way or another, emotionally, physically, whatever. So feel free to talk about those with your guys and gals and what can we do to make things better. Um, so I think leading by example, getting a program started, and it is hard with small departments. And um, state of Minnesota, or majority of police departments are small departments, 15 guys or less. And so start looking at what can we do regionally? How can we work together? And that's what we're doing here. Because I've only got, you know, um, 3, 4 guys right on my roster at a time. I can't be the peer support for them. It's hard for them to be peer support for themselves as well. So how can we work with neighboring agencies? And that's what we've been working on, is putting together a peer support program where their officers that are trained in peer support can help. My officers, my officers that are trained in peer support can help them um, and work together to have a cooperative peer support program. And it gets a little funky when you're trying to get funding and everything like that. But there are agencies out there that are really willing to work with the smaller departments I think it's important to find that agent, that peer support or wellness program if you're using an outside contractor that doesn't have a limit. That doesn't say, hey, you have to have 10 people or you have to have so many people or it's a flat rate. Find that company that's going to work with you with one or two guys. And then it's easier to put together a cooperative because now my department's paying for, two or three guys. The other department's paying, but we're all working together. So um, it makes it a little easier financially. There are lots of grants out there as well, so look for grants. I know a federal grant was just came out here recently for peer support programs or mental health programs, and most states now have some type of funding available. So reach out for those opportunities. But put yourself as a leader at the forefront and say it's okay, and then back that up
Mm,
by earning that trust, by showing that you're paying the bills. I don't care. Even have that peer support program, have the ability for someone that's on peer support to call, management and say, hey, I need to give so-and-so a couple days off. You know,
yeah,
okay, no questions asked. Go get the time off. Yep, they got to go see someone, but as long as they're going and getting help and coming back, we're good. And then no questions asked. I'm not going up to that officer and going, hey, did you go in? Did you do this? Just, I'm checking in. Are you doing okay? What can we do for you? And we look forward to you coming back.
yeah,
And just having your officers' backs as they go through this thing, and realizing that, hey, maybe something will happen where that officer can't come back. That is what it is. But how are we going to support them going forward? Because just letting them walk out that door too, without followed up. I mean, this profession's real good about we'll have a big retirement party for you when you leave, but then don't really follow up with you afterwards. So having a program in place too, just to follow up with these officers if they do leave the department and regularly checking in with them, letting them know they are still part of the family and we're here to help with what we need. And then offering that support to the family members as well.
yeah.
Because family members suffer from it too. So what can we do to help our officers' families? What programs and outreach do we have for them in developing those programs as well?
Thank you. You made some really good points. And even just to touch on that last little bit, I've had a number of conversations, and you experience this too, where the organization doesn't follow up and how lonely and deflating that is for the individual who has dedicated their entire life to this profession and, that organization. And, I've heard it even in the context of injuries, where someone was
Yeah.
out on injury and don't really know when they're going to come back. They're, stuck, not stuck at home. I don't want to say stuck, but they're
You can't come to work.
grounded. They're
Yeah.
grounded, you can't do anything until you're healed. And so, I've had conversations about that too, where they're like, wow, like we didn't get a call from anybody.
Mhm.
And then it's that question of like, am I valued? What's the point? Should I go back? And you're put into this like mental headspace of thinking that no one cares about you. And especially if someone's dealing with depression or PTSI or whatever it is that they're going through, to then have that be something that compounds, I think that that's a really important message to, and I think it could be for peers too. I think leadership for sure. But as peers, can you check in on each other? Can you put it in your calendar?
Yeah.
Once a week or every other week, can you send, everyone has time to do this. Can you send a text message? Can you call? I think calling is probably better, but can you do something that checks
Yeah.
on people so that they feel like they matter?
Yeah. And I will tell you something as little as a text. I get a text from a guy, from the department. A few of the guys would just send a text. Hey, thinking about you. I hope everything's going well. That made me feel 100% better for that day.
Yeah,
But to have management reach out and give you a call and check in with you, like I said, initially, yes, but after it went on for a little while, you didn't have that. And to me, it just felt like they didn't care if I was coming back or not. Right.
yeah,
And I don't want people to feel like that. And we all can do a better job. I can do a better job. I know I've got guys that go out on injury or what not that I've worked with before, and I don't always do a good job of following up with them, but I think you hit it right. Mark it on a calendar and just reach out somehow. Yes, phone calls more personal, but I'll tell you what, I take a text message too, just something showing that it's coming from you. It's not a self-generated thing that you're automatically sending out or whatever, you know. But
You put someone on like an email campaign.
right, yeah, just generally reaching out there, and then when do you check in? What, here's some stuff I can offer you. What can we do? Can we do anything for the family? Um, I think I think the families do a pretty good job of taking care of other families. Um, I know when I went down to the riots down in Minneapolis back in 2020, um, when I came home, after a few days, I remember going out to the freezer to get something, and what are all these pizza and snacks? I'm opening cupboards, there's snacks all over the place. I'm like, where did all this food come from? You know, and it was other police families bringing my family food and snacks and supplies and stuff while we were gone during this event. And it's stuff like that that I think the department needs to take on as well
Yeah.
and do little things like that. And it doesn't have to be because you're deployed somewhere on some operation or whatever. But if you're out, just taking that time to send a little package of goodies or some flowers to the wife or something like that, that shows we give a crap, not only about the officer, but about the man.
And I think small gestures speak volumes.
Yeah.
Like we can all relate to that. We can all relate to a handwritten card or
Mhm.
a small act of kindness of someone like looking you in the eye and saying like, "Hey, how are you?" I think that there's these small efforts that go such a long way, but it is effort. And you have to be willing to put in the effort, especially I think because we get so wrapped up in the things that we're doing that sometimes you don't take a moment to look up or to zoom out and to recognize those things. And I think we're all guilty of that. We get busy, there's lots of things going on, but I think that sometimes people underestimate the value of effort, especially when it comes to wellness. Of course, there's programming like peer support and, clinicians and other resources that are very, very valuable. But I think that you underestimate your ability to impact people's lives through small acts. And it just takes that awareness and that little bit of effort to get you there. I wanted to ask you one final question before we wrap for the day. I know you've given a lot of really great insights into your background and you gave some leadership advice and how you can get things moving. What words of wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that's helped you along the way.
Yeah, this is for those that are getting it, Minnesota, you're going to work till you're 55 before you get your full pension. Now, whether you stay that whole time or not, but I've got guys I trained in that have been working for 15 years now and still got 25 years to go yet before their pension. So it's a long career. So my best advice I can give to young recruits or new officers coming into this career, whether it's pre-hospital care like I started or law enforcement as I'm in now, is take care of yourself and take care of your family. So how do I do that? One, I need to find some outlet outside of work. And when we say don't bring work home with you, get out away from, that was always our mental, don't bring it home with you. Well, yes, get away from work is a better thing. Use that vacation time. Have hobbies. I love to read. I love to cook. If I'm feeling a little bit down, you will know because I'll be in the kitchen all day cooking food like crazy because I love to cook. Um, or get the smoker out and get the smoker going. Find some type of hobby outside of work to take your mind away from things. Coach your kids in sports, something, something along those lines. Take care of yourself mentally. Find that mental health support. And it doesn't have, even be necessarily something the office is offering. Maybe there's other platforms out there, online even, where you can virtually meet with people. Just have some type of way to take care of yourself mentally. Even just having some type of religion, like going to church or whatever, a lot of times that can reset your energy as well.
Yeah.
Physical exercise, I am not the specimen of physical exercise, uh, but I do try to get into the gym on a regular basis. I will tell you that being physically fit in this job, um, one prepares you better for physical, prevents physical injury, but it also helps prevent that mental injury as well by having that release of endorphins as you go and work out and get yourself physically ready for this job. I've been injured a lot in this career, and a lot of those injuries probably could have been prevented by just taking better care of myself.
Yeah.
Uh, and diet's huge. I mean, I ate out of gas stations for years. Meal prep is the way to go. So just those little steps can really increase the longevity, I think, of your career and how you're going to feel physically when you're done with it and how you're going to feel mentally when you're done with it. We see too often in this career where guys retire, and before that first retirement check even hits the door, they've died of a heart attack
Yeah.
or something, some medical problem. So start young, developing those healthy habits, and you'll get through this career. But don't let it compound on you. Don't take the job too serious to the point where you're bringing it home in a way that's unhealthy. Feel free to talk about, and it's not easy to share stuff because, you know, spouses don't want to, can't maybe not comprehend what we've seen, but you got to talk about it because if you just bury it or whatnot and let that anger build up and stuff, you're going to destroy your family life. Um, Believe me.
Mm.
And so take those steps. And I wish that steps I would have taken earlier in my career. Had I taken my mental health serious, had I taken my physical health a little bit more seriously, um, I think one, I'd probably still be working at the agency I started with. Um, and two, I don't think I would have had the issue, face those issues as bad as I did had I just taken care of it. So start your career off on a good path and just keep that path going forward and help each other. Help your classmates, your cadet mates, help your fellow, when you get into the career, help your fellow officers, your partners have that healthy workspace and work together so you don't end up going down a road you don't want to go and you have a healthy, happy career and you get out of it and you don't hate the world.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate your time so much. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. That is all I have for you. So I appreciate you spending time with
Awesome.
me today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was an honor. Thank you.
Of course.